In Buddhism, there's this idea of non-attachment or surrender. And for those of us who live in the West, sometimes we cringe at the idea of non-attachment or surrendering because we equate that to giving up, or people that have no goals and no desire to better themselves. We sometimes call people like that hippies and assume that they've completely given up on life, detached from society, moved to the mountains, and have become monks. And while that does sound kind of nice sometimes, it's not super realistic because I have responsibilities. I'm sure you have responsibilities you can't just walk away from. And so how do we balance the idea of non-attachment or surrender with having goals and progress? I think the reason we struggle with surrendering and non-attachment is because we don't quite understand what it means and what it looks like in practice. So what exactly are we surrendering, and what are we surrendering it to? What we want to surrender is our ego, or our false self. The problem with the ego is that it gives us an illusion of control, and our ego attaches us to our desires and our desired outcomes for certain situations and for our goals. And so in practice, surrendering or non-attachment is letting go of our ego and moving into the present moment, letting go of the past, forgetting about the future, and embracing what is, embracing the present moment. We're surrendering our ego to what is. And so why do we want to surrender our ego to what is? What's the whole purpose behind this? And it's because our ego and our attachment to certain outcomes and our attachment to these false realities is what causes suffering. So think about the last time that you were sad or anxious or angry or upset, and it's probably, if you think about it, there was likely some sort of attachment to an outcome, to a reality that was not real. And that attachment to what is not real, to a false reality, is what causes suffering. My favorite Chinese proverb, and now that I say that, it's really the only Chinese proverb I know, so by default it is my favorite Chinese proverb, but it's the one about the old man and the sun. And I'm going to give the short version as fast as I can because I assume a lot of you have already heard it. But it's about this old man who has a son, and the old man loses one of his horses, and his son goes off to find the horse, and the young boy finds the horse, and the horse had, met up with a bunch of wild stallions. And so as the boy brings the lost horse back, he also brings back a bunch of stallions. And all of the villagers come to the old man and say, "Oh, like, what luck. Like, you're so lucky that your son brought back all these horses and your lost horse." And he says, more or less, "We'll see." And the next day, or, shortly after, the boy is trying to tame one of the wild horses and he breaks his leg. And all the villagers are like, "Oh, we're so sorry. That's such bad luck. That's such bad fortune." And the old man says, "We'll see." And the story continues that a war breaks out, and all the young men in the area are required to go serve in the army. But because this boy has a broken leg, he doesn't have to go. And all the villagers come to the old man again and say, "Oh, like, you're so lucky. What good fortune that your son had a broken leg and now he'll be spared." I think the story continues with multiple different scenarios. And once again, the old man, whenever the villagers come to him and saying like, "Oh, that's such bad luck," or "Oh, that's such good luck, like, you're so lucky," or "You have such good fortune," or, maybe from a Christian context, they're saying like, "You're so blessed." And the old man just kind of says, "We'll see," or, "It is what it is." And I'm sure I'm butchering that story, but to me, what he is doing is realizing that, when we attach ourselves to our good fortune or our bad fortune, that creates that attachment that causes more suffering. Like, we're never really going to stop pain from happening in our life. And we're also not going to stop joy from happening in our life. And so when we attach ourselves to any of those, we're causing unnecessary suffering. And another, I guess I do know more than one proverb. The other Chinese proverb that kind of goes along with this is the idea of the second arrow. Like, life is going to shoot you with an arrow with pain. Pain will happen. The question is, are you going to hit yourself with a second arrow with unnecessary suffering? And that's the idea of what attachment is unnecessary suffering. The idea of blessings versus curses, good fortune or good luck versus bad luck or bad fortune. It's neither. It just is what it is. And embracing what is non-attachment. I know there are major theological differences, but Christianity also has a very similar idea, but they don't call it detachment. They call it surrendering to God's will. And both the Christian version of surrendering to God's will and the Buddhist version of surrendering the ego, they're both giving up our attachment to our own desires and our own desired outcomes and embracing what is. Another tradition that kind of talks about similar things in a similar way is Stoicism. The Stoics believe that this life is only ours essentially on loan. Like, this life is a gift that can be taken away from us at any moment. And even if it's not taken away, it's a gift that has to be given back. And so understanding that we cannot attach ourselves to our possessions, to anything in this life, because it's not really ours, is another way of detachment or non-attachment and surrendering to what is. With all of this said, I know there is a shadow side to this practice. When done unhealthily, this practice of detachment can look like apathy, passivity, bypassing, and disassociation, resulting in complete disengagement from life. And by contrast, what the Buddhists and the Christians and the Stoics are looking for is not complete apathy towards life, but more of a detachment from our desired outcomes, as I've said, 100 times. And so in practice, this will look like if I wanted a new job, I'm going to go chase that job. And if and when I fail to get a new job, then I'm not going to suffer needlessly. I'm going to feel that pain, embrace what is, but then redirect that energy to continue to find new jobs. It's not a detachment from goals. It's not a detachment from progress. It's a detachment from your desired outcome that causes unnecessary suffering. And similarly, if tragedy happens in someone's life, if there is death or loss or anything like that, the idea is to not bypass that. Unhealthy detachment looks like bypassing. And so a healthy way to traverse through tragedy is to, once again, embrace what is, to transcend through those emotions, not under or above or around the emotions, but to go through them. Feel your way through the emotions, embrace what is, and detach from your expected results, what you wanted out of reality, because that's what causes suffering. Life is like a roller coaster, and there are really high highs and really low lows. And I feel like this practice of surrendering the ego and non-attachment, detachment from desired outcomes and expectations, I feel like it really helps us not get so whiplashed on the high highs and the low lows. It kind of makes things less drastic and less dangerous as we experience the highs and the lows of life. What I feel like I've been talking about a lot for the last couple videos is that when we cling to false realities or escape to false reality, that is what causes the most suffering. And so if we can surrender our ego and detach from these desired outcomes and false realities, we can escape this unnecessary suffering. Because like I said earlier, pain is inevitable in this life. We're not going to escape that, but we can stop unnecessary suffering that comes from these false and imagined realities. But anyways, I've just been thinking a lot about this recently, and I'd honestly like to hear if you agree with the Christians or the Buddhists or the Stoics on this, if there is value in surrendering to God's will, to what is, to the idea that this life is given to us on loan, that it's a gift we have to give back. Like, is there value to this? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this, because, I'm just learning as I go here. I'm definitely not an expert. But anyways, if this was interesting or helpful at all or thought-provoking, stick around and I'll catch you in the next video.